SoftBank announces the sale of its entire stake in Nvidia for $5.8 billion. So it begins. In fact, I could maybe even start by mentioning there's one thing that I don't think I wrote down a link for. I have like 4 or 5 different things linked. One thing that I think I forgot to link is that according to the economic data that's available to us, GDP growth is expected to be negative this quarter. Which I shouldn't have to explain why that's really bad. You know, line go up isn't really good, but line go down is really bad. Sure, let's leave. Oh, fuck. Okay, here's NerdWallet. I think, like, in terms of the information they get, NerdWallet is probably pretty good. Growth in the second quarter registered at 3.3%. This was the data centers and stuff. But where was the GDP? Where did they say this for the first quarter? Yeah, quarter 1, 2025 had a negative 0.5% GDP growth. So for the first 3 months of this year, we were objectively in a recession, like an economic recession. And if things get worse, it could be a full-on economic depression. This is COVID. So there's a bunch of like miniature recessions. Or actually, it might not be objectively a recession. I think a recession has like a technical definition where it's supposed to be like, oh, you know, if GDP growth is stagnant for however many quarters consecutively, but like, let's start actually with this. Let's start with talking about 50-year mortgages. Those are people that believe change does not exist. Yeah, true. Okay, so let's start with some of this. Shout outs, USA Today, Donald Trump's 50-year mortgage proposal, what to know about long-term loans. 30-year mortgages are the norm in the United States. If you buy a house, you commit yourself to being in debt for 30 years. You literally just rent it from the bank. That's it. That's what you're doing. And 50-year mortgages are even more psychotic because instead of having to pay each month for 30 years, the fuck are you doing? Now you have to pay rent every month for 50 years until you get to like not have to worry about it. I think somebody crunched some numbers on this and it was like the monthly payments came out to be a little bit lower, but you pay almost 2 times as much in interest over time. Nobody liked this except for this guy, Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pult. And Trump was like, yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. That's tremendous. We have to do the 50-year mortgages right away as soon as possible. And so he went and announced it. And even Fox News was like, are you sure that's a good idea? Yeah, before the 2008 financial crisis, there actually wasn't a time limit on mortgages. In the early 2000s, I learned about this in my economics class in high school. There was such a thing as a 40-year mortgage. In the 2000s, leading up to the financial crisis, there were 40-year mortgages, but 30 years was the norm. And now 30 years is the longest term that people are allowed to give you a mortgage at. There's also 15 and 20 year, which still psychotic, but nonetheless. Yeah, so the monthly payments would be cheaper, but 50 years, so much more could happen. If from the bank's perspective, right? The bank is the entity that collects that money. From the perspective of the bank, 50 years is so much longer. When you stop, so much longer of a time than 30 years that those mortgages are severely unstable relative to even a 30-year mortgage. So the banks don't like it. Obviously, people who would be going into debt for 50 years and can't afford a home don't like it because it's like, great, now I would have to pay basically the same thing, but like a little bit less, I suppose, for 50 years of my life instead of 30 years of my life. And my kids might get saddled with a debt. By the way, apparently that's like legal, that if your parents were in debt and they had a house, that like the kids get saddled with the debt afterwards, which is fucking psychotic. Again, build less equity. Yeah, this is bad for banks. This is bad for homeowners. Nobody wants this. Nobody likes this. But it's some like crackpot real estate shit that you start to see when an economic collapse is imminent. You know, I refer again to the 40-year mortgages of the 2000s, and another one that banks were starting to pick up on was the no down payment mortgage. Basically, in the United States, you have to put, I think, 10 or 20% of the cost of a house as a down payment. You have to pay 10 or 20% up front, and then you pay the rest of it as a mortgage over time. In the 2000s, banks started offering mortgages where you didn't have to pay anything up front, and you just immediately started paying down a mortgage. Which, at a fundamental level, the structure of these like isn't that different from a normal mortgage. But there's a well-known kind of scam called rent to own, right? Where it's essentially a rug pull where you start paying rent with the promise that one day you're going to own this apartment or this house free and clear, right? But then like the rates keep changing. They have really high monthly payments, or the term is really long or something like that. It's designed to give you the illusion that one day you'll be out of debt, but functionally you're in debt forever. Again, not that different from a 30-year mortgage. If I got a mortgage right now, I'm nowhere near wealthy enough to even put the fucking money down on a house. But if right now I bought a house and got a mortgage of a standard period, I'm not paying that shit off completely until I'm almost retirement age. I'm 25 right now. If I took a 30-year mortgage, I'd be paying that until I was my parents' age. And if I took a 50-year mortgage, I'm paying that shit until I have one foot in the grave. So no thank you. Nobody likes this. This is effectively like another version of that scam where you give people the illusion that one day they will be out of debt, when functionally what they're doing is you are renting a house from the bank at exorbitantly high costs because mortgage payments are higher than rent payments, and you assume more of the responsibility for upkeep on that house. See, because I live in an apartment, right, where I pay rent every month, certain things, certain acts of maintenance in this apartment are not my responsibility. I don't have to worry about that. I'm not the building owner or building manager. That's not my job to fix that stuff. Like if some paint chips on the wall, I can just take a picture of it. I can reach out to the landlord or the building manager, say, yeah, there's some chip paint, and then it's their responsibility to send somebody to deal with it. Again, that's like some middleman shit, and you would much rather it be like a collective ownership arrangement because that tends to make operations run a lot more smoothly. It brings costs down for the average tenant or like cooperative member. There are a lot of really bad landlords out there, but nonetheless, that's the concept. If this were a rent to own or a house, I would be paying significantly more in rent because like a lot of those expenses are kind of consolidated and itemized or whatever. But if they're now my responsibility, now I have to pay for all that, and my rent is like a lot higher. So instead of, let's say you pay $2,000 a month for an apartment, like you and a roommate are sharing an apartment. It's like a two-bedroom. I guess a two-bedroom in most places would be more than $2,000, but like just for the sake of example, for a rent to own, you'd probably be paying something like $3,000 or $4,000, and that's what this is. I probably didn't even need to explain all that. People probably just saw 50-year mortgages and they're like, yeah, I don't want to be in debt for 50 years, which fundamentally is why this is a fucking moronic idea. But that's just the housing market. I might even cut some of that out of the segment because the main event is this. The CEOs, the executives of AI companies, particularly Sam Altman, and the CFO as well, mentioned that, like, yeah, the government is like the insurer of last resort, so everything's fine, but in case everything wasn't fine, the government will just give us obscene amounts of money to recoup our losses, right? Because companies are fucking allergic to losing money. Meanwhile, Trump's administration has said, we're not bailing your ass out, shut up. There will be no federal bailout for artificial intelligence. These comments came after OpenAI CFO Sarah Frier mentioned a federal backstop during a conference. So the AI moguls are very confident that this is going to happen, and the federal government is very confident that we're not fucking doing that for you. Okay, yeah, David Sachs. No federal bailout for AI. And this is because the AI bubble is like 5 or 6 times as big as the bubble from 2008. The federal government literally could not bail out the AI companies if it even wanted to. And I feel like if they could, they would. This is literally a matter of like them not being able to. Ironically, the government being overly like conciliatory to business interests and particularly AI serves a rhetorical use here, because you have to be in a pretty fucking shitty spot for this government to refuse an AI company a bailout. Does that make sense? US has 5 major frontier model companies. If one fails, others will take its place. Unironically, a more left-leaning position than like the Obama's administration. But again, this is driven by necessity. It's almost like reality has a left-leaning bias, you know? Oh, your company fails? That sucks, bro. Sorry. OpenAI CFO said the startup wants to establish an ecosystem of private equity, banks, and a federal backstop or guarantee that could help the company finance its infrastructure investments. What a bunch of whiny fucking bitch babies. Like, yeah, we want to build up some loan infrastructure. We want the federal government to bail us out. The absolute entitlement, by the way, that every company just works it into part of their business plan, that like, yeah, the government's going to bail us out if anything goes wrong. She tried to walk it back, but everybody knew what she meant. El Bozo. Trump admin does want to make permitting power generation easier. Right. They're building. It's funny. They're building power plants specifically for data centers, and they're building data centers to make speculative line go up, but they're not building power plants for anybody else. So no bailout. And on top of that, here's the real kicker. This is the thing I quote tweeted. Breaking. SoftBank announces the sale of its entire stake in Nvidia for $5.8 billion. So it begins. People are posting some images from The Big Short, you may notice. In fact, because this is just a Twitter post, let me corroborate this. Yep, here we go. CNBC. SoftBank sells its entire stake in Nvidia for $5.83 billion. SoftBank sold 32.1 million shares of Nvidia in October. It also sold part of its stake in T-Mobile. This is not the first time SoftBank has cashed out. Yeah. Real convincing, CNBC. SoftBank remains tied to Nvidia through other AI ventures. Capitalize on its all-in bet on ChatGPT maker OpenAI. So basically they're saying there's no more money to be made here. We're going to cash out. This is what it looks like when a bubble begins to pop, is that people start selling their shit. Dip 2% on Tuesday. 2% in one day is pretty significant, but it's not, we're not at the point of that precipitous drop off being reflected in like the line go down, wee, you know? Offloading of the Nvidia stake had nothing to do with concerns about artificial intelligence valuations. The person said, "Oh, I'm sure, I'm sure." Um, yeah, they sold everything. What's up, brother boss? Nice. What else did I have? I had another link, I think. Let me actually take a look at some of the things that I liked and retweeted. Check what I posted in the Discord. I got you. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I saw something about that. I'll talk about that in a second. I need to find the one other thing that I was like, oh yeah, this is also like a recession indicator. Okay, this one is hilarious. The White House is using DoorDash to measure economic metrics. It's so fucking over. Because remember, they've been trying to undercut the reliability of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So they go to fucking DoorDash. Uh, clown car ass government. What else did I see? There was one. Oh, this one's pretty good too. No affordability crisis, according to Axios. More that was the Trump administration saying, "Shut the fuck up. There is no affordability crisis. Everything's fine." Uh oh. Um. Yeah. Here is another one. Again from the Spectator Index. I'm gonna try to corroborate this one as well. 12.4% of credit card balances in the US are now over 90 days delinquent, the highest since 2011. That means that people haven't paid off their credit card since the due date at an alarmingly high rate. So, like, 90 days delinquent doesn't mean you haven't paid it off in 90 days. There's like a deadline for you to pay off a balance on your credit card, which isn't like the moment you use your credit card for something, right? It comes up later. So it's not just 90 days. It's 90 days on top of that other deadline. I think it's like an end of the month thing, kind of like rent and bills and utilities, whatever. So like if you spend something, if you spend some of your balance on your credit card on something at the beginning of the month, then you have the rest of that month. So it's like 20 to 30 days until that payment is actually due. And then after that, it becomes delinquent, which means that this is anywhere from 3 to 4 months of not paying off your credit card. Also, you'll note the date on a lot of these statistics since 2011. I've seen a lot of since 2009 as well. Again, the fucking Big Short reaction pictures, very nice. Thank you. This economic collapse is gonna be fuck ugly. Like, it's really bad. Such is the economic state of this country. Personally, like, okay. Speculative market collapses always usually get offloaded to really poor people. So I almost undoubtedly I'm going to be feeling the effects of that, because despite the fact that I have a nice computer and a surfboard back there, I'm not fucking wealthy. You know? Um I guess there's a little bit of like catharsis and like adventurism and schadenfreude that I intend to bask in when the whole House of Cards comes crumbling down with AI and whatever other fucking investment that the wealthy have been doing, you know, because it's going to be really funny that I haven't invested in any of that, but I don't get to enjoy that to the fullest extent, because that's going to hurt everybody else too. And that's going to suck a lot. I guess, again, acceleration is a moment. I can only hope that this collapse is so much more economically detrimental than previous collapses that it like legitimately causes people to be more upset and be willing to take more drastic action, like protest action and striking action against the government and against like private enterprise and stuff. Because protests in America tend to be pretty toothless. That's part of how things have been able to get as bad as they are. Is because nobody fucking does anything in this country. Politically, that is. Store these. But yeah, economy's fucked. That's great. 50-year mortgages, AI bubble popping, government saying no, there will be no bailout. The government is using DoorDash to measure economics. And oh, also, here, hold on. I just remembered the other one. U.S. losing. Oh, this is even worse than I thought it was. From Reuters. I saw this again on Twitter, but I just looked it up, and here it is on Reuters. U.S. firms were shedding more than 11,000 jobs a week through late October, payroll processor ADP said on Thursday in its latest real-time estimate of job market trends. Though and a report from them last week estimated the U.S. overall added 42,000 jobs in October versus the months before. The new estimates show how hiring trends are evolving on a week-to-week basis. In this case, pointing to further weakening in the labor market, closely monitored by Federal Reserve policymakers. So basically, it's like, yeah, this data is hard to collect, and we thought 42,000 jobs were added this month, but it's more like 42,000 jobs were lost this month. The labor market struggled to produce jobs consistently during the second half of the month. Issued weekly payroll estimates as a way to augment its monthly jobs report. That's great. So yeah, the fucking AI bubble's collapsing. People are starting to sell off their shit. The government is insisting there's no bailout. There's 50-year mortgages now, which means you will own nothing, and you, unfortunately, you won't be happy. You know, classic conservatism moment. And America is hemorrhaging jobs every week to the tune of 11,000. You know, phenomenal. just fantastic. Thank you. If that's a segment, end it there, future me. Thanks for watching, and support the channel if you would be so kind.